Well guys, we have here base Ben Bradley of the Tory party, who has point blank refused to be indoctrinated by this lunacy the Conservative Party is actually taking part in. I am talking about the ludicrous unconscious bias training being introduced at our expense yet again. He has called out the metropolitan groupthink lunacy that is intolerant to any diversity of views, as we all know, and accused the firm involved in the scheme of profiteering. So let's get into it, because it is refreshing to see in this day and age, especially with the Conservatives. It headlines, Ben Bradley, I will not be undertaking unconscious bias training and call on my colleagues to take the same stand. Because it is essentially kneeling like the Labour Party did, if you ask me. The evidence is growing, he said, that many of our institutions are dominated by a metropolitan groupthink that is intolerant to any diversity of views, whether it is the BBC, the British Library, or even government departments. The latest such evidence is further rollout of unconscious bias training here in the Commons, which I have to say I 100% agree with what he's saying there, and he stand against it while telling other people to also do the same. This is the sort of indoctrination that we are seeing in our schools at the moment. Apparently, it's also happening in the House of Commons. And as you would expect, the Labour Party have taken it hook, line and sinker and are fully involved in doing it every single day, I bet. This particular idea that we all need to be re-educated and taught to suppress our innate urge to be awful to each other all of the time is costing the taxpayer a bomb as it rolls through our various government agencies and quangos. Next, it's the turn of MPs to be told that all of our thoughts are offensive and should be corrected. I found out recently that House of Commons staff have been forced to sit through this nonsense since 2016, but the course is being extended in the wake of the BLM protests, a subject on which my thoughts have been pretty well publicised, and MPs will be expected to sit through it too. Let me be clear right from the off, I will not be taking part. Because you are not a cuck and you will not bend the knee. Well done, Ben Bradley, you have my respect at this point. Nobody doubts that racism exists and can make life more challenging for some people, nor that sexism exists, ageism and discrimination across a whole spectrum. That much is true. What I doubt here is that some of the things are somehow buried deep in all of our subconscious, staring us at every turn, and that, with the help of some genius educator, I can be cured of my unseen evil. I'm yet to see evidence of it achieving a great deal, apart from big profits for the training company, which is obviously what all this bollocks is really about. Unconscious bias training is probably one of the biggest loads of shit I have ever heard, but it really doesn't surprise me that it is going on and apparently has been going on since 2016. Maybe we will have to look into these companies and their profits that they are making from this. It has been reported that £7,000 of taxpayers' cash will be spent designing a course featuring a blue Cookie Monster-esque puppet who wants to tell me in its cute and furry way that I shouldn't use offensive words like pensioner or lady. What the actual fuck? And this goes to show why you need to get rid of this shit. Apparently, the puppet also plans to tell me which version of history I must use and which bits I should delete from my memory, improving my cultural competency, which is obviously what all this is about, removing our history and replacing it with a nonsensical version that they want to make up. This apparently is going to cost us around £700,000 in total. Needless to say, I'm not convinced this is an appropriate use of taxpayers' money. Of course it's not. You don't need to not be convinced of it. It's a given fact that it's not going to be. I guarantee if they threw a referendum on this, 99% of the country would say you're having a laugh, spend it on something else that will actually benefit people. In recent weeks, I completed similar value in everyone training, aimed at explaining how I should not be mean to my staff. I guess I blindly stumbled into that one, not quite aware until I clicked on the Zoom call exactly what I was doing. It was quite a jolly couple of hours in truth, a nice chat with colleagues, but as far as I can tell, we achieved precisely nothing except for a sizable bill around 750 grand. So they are charging 750 grand for this course that is done over a Zoom call. How in the good Lord fuck can they justify that price? It should be more like £75, let's be honest. And that should be fronted by political parties themselves who want to take part in it. The public purse should not be used. I don't doubt there are more than a small number of MPs who are a nightmare to work for and can behave inappropriately. I'm just not convinced that 2 hours of training will have made the blindest bit of difference, despite the huge cost. Obviously it won't. In truth, if you ask the staffers in this building, they could tell you who those bad bosses and managers are in seconds. It's not a secret. Yeah, apparently it's not a secret amongst yous lot, but you don't don't give us that information so we can call these scumbags out, because I bet those bad bosses have done plenty that you don't want us to know about. And maybe you don't even know about yourself. Let's be honest, you're a relatively new MP. He continues though, there is something deeply undemocratic about it too. In my view, I'm elected to this place to represent my constituents, to share their thoughts and views with the House. We've already seen through the Brexit debate how the views of Leave voters were characterised as racist and unacceptable, and now we're to be educated about which views are appropriate for us to speak about, which is essentially what 2020 has been all about, trying to condition us into doing what they want. We must resist. Who gets to decide which issues or views are appropriate for me to raise on behalf of my constituents? I've been told that speaking about the challenges facing working class white boys in my community is racist or sexist more than once. If it causes offence to a handful, should I keep quiet? No, you fucking shouldn't. The biggest issue filling my inbox is illegal immigration, something thousands of my constituents feel very strongly about, something that millions of people in this country feel extremely strongly about, let me tell you that. But it's a bit controversial, isn't it? So should I leave it alone? No, it's not controversial, and no, you shouldn't leave it alone. The thought police will be the death of an open debate and stymie our democracy. This is something they are already doing. I've said it more than once, the electoral shift in the demographics of the average Tory voter in 2019 are not something we can ignore. Well, Boris Johnson is certainly ignoring that. You might want to go and have a word with him. They elected the Conservatives with a clear Conservative message in that election about law and order, taking back control, freedom and free speech that can give a voice to places like Mansfield that have been ignored for a long time. We need to stick to that message and those values. Well, the Conservatives have pissed all over those values already, let me tell you. Take a look at what has happened this year so far. It's been a complete clusterfuck and pretty far away from real conservatism, let's be honest. It's pretty well recognised now that this kind of imposition of one set of values onto others is widely unpopular with what is now the core Conservative vote. The working class folks of Mansfield, of Bury, of Redcar. They abhor the antics of BLM, of Extinction Rebellion and the like telling them what they should think. They know their own minds. It's that kind of conflict with the metropolitan bubble where our institutions largely exist that led us to Brexit too. Woke ideology seems deeply embedded at this point. Oh, you better believe it's deeply embedded. You ain't gonna get rid of that from some of these snivelling shitweasels. You really better believe it. He finishes up, in my view, we should be unabashed in our cultural conservatism, sticking up for free speech and the right to make my own bloody mind up, thank you very much, and stepping in to block this unconscious bias nonsense. I, for one, will not be taking part, and I'd call on my colleagues to take the same stand. Maybe we can have a good go at some bigger reforms too. After all, this is a Conservative government. Well, good luck on that. We know what the Tories have done so far, and let me tell you, it is not very much. Well, I do have to say, well done to Bren Bradley for standing up against this bullshit and also pointing out how much it's costing the country. I would say that I can't believe that Boris Johnson is allowing this to happen, but let's be honest, he's hardly been very strong on most issues as it stands, especially the immigration issue, like Ben Bradley said. He is getting thousands of letters from his constituents, which I would bet is happening all around the country. Most of the MPs are just not telling us about it. Now, the real struggle for the Conservative Party is to try and get rid of this sort of groupthink that he's talking about. Do I think they will do it? Do I fuck?
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.